So that was an Andantino. This is number 21 from Giuliani's Op.50. Follow lesson for free. We're going to be talking about a number of things in regards to phrasing, but also dampening string noise and things like that. But if you're interested, I do have an edition of all 32 works in Op.50, and there's a link for that in the description. So this piece is has very defined phrases and clearly dominant voices, that melodic voices that move, often in the bass, but not always. So you'll want to go through the piece and just identify those, and also practice them on their own. So for example, the opening phrase here, the top voice is a melodic voice, but the bass line also moves. Practicing those on their own can give you some insight. The bass line moves the piece forward quite a bit, and can you can create some growth through that phrase and then back off from the last note. But the upper note is not uninteresting either. You know, repetition in music can be powerful. So going through the voices separately, I think it can be very useful. You can see which voices are actively moving, but also what you can do with more static notes as well, and making them all quite melodic in the end. So in a lot of these phrases, a little bit of growth, center of the phrase, and then a backing off near the end, I think is important. And I am generally observing all the rests. So when you get to the end of a phrase, I'm cutting the sound on those rests and then starting the next phrase quite fresh. Besides that, I'll just walk through the piece, and then we'll talk about cutting the bass voice sound at a few spots just to avoid it bleeding over into the next harmony. Do a barré or a bar chord right off the bat here. That way you don't have to reposition your first finger for the G sharp. It's just already there. So it's hard to remember to do a bar chord when you're not actually using it yet. It's really easy to kind of just place it and then forget and have to jump your finger over. But instead, place it right away, and you don't have to think about it. It'll be smoother that way. There, I use my thumb for all the notes except for that high A in the bass. Same thing here. Do the bar early in measure 13. Do the bar at the beginning of the whole measure so that you don't have to jump your finger over. That's much better than starting with a small bar and then trying to jump into a larger one. It's just too difficult. So place all 4 strings right off the bat. That section there could be accomplished for players that are a little bit more advanced. You could do some hinge bars and things to accomplish the first finger jumps in measure 14 and 15 and 16. But it's possible just to jump the fingers over and smooth it out. And Giuliani does put rests in there, so it does work without any bars there. But I'll let you decide. If you decide to do a hinge bar in measure 14, you start with the hinge that, so you're getting the F with part of the unbarred first finger, and then you place it, and you could even lift and replace the pivot bar, and you could even do the same thing here, doing a hinge bar if you wanted it to all be super smooth and sustained. But that's much more difficult, and it's not necessarily the intention of the fingering in that section. So I'd say for students more on the early intermediate side, just play with my fingering and just jump that first finger over, even there. It's pretty much what's written in the music. More advanced players, you can try out some of those hinge and pivot bars there. I play the F on the second string so I can sustain that. That's probably not the intention. He has a little eighth note rest underneath that note, which would allow you know, to jump down or something, but it just works much better. Played on the second string. I do the bar chord quite early there just because it comes in useful later. Completely different texture at the end. So in some places, like at the end here, and I'm going to do a separate video lesson on this topic this week, but you don't want the A to bleed into the last chord necessarily. So I actually try to get my thumb into the D string at such a steep angle that my thumb mutes out the A string at the very end, so you don't get like, you know, that A's ringing so loud it kind of overpowers the D. Often when you go from a 5 chord to a 1 chord, you're doing tension resolution, so it's sometimes loud and then soft. But if you play something loud and then something soft, even, you know, the guitar, the attack is very strong on a note, but it can still be overpowering sometimes. So it's nice to mute that. You can even mute it out on the second chord. But it's nice to end the piece with just the actual chord that's written without a big A ringing through it as well. Even though A is part of the chord, it's nice to have, you know, the chord be heard in its proper inversion. So muting that A out is a great idea. If you're not comfortable getting the side of your thumb in there to mute it, just at least play the chord and put your thumb back on the A string. So at least the final thing people hear is the actual written chord. Interesting little piece, lots of different little sections and little phrases. In some ways, lots to talk about. In other ways, just follow the fingering and shape your phrases, and it'll sound good. But it took me like a second to like get my head around what Giuliani was going for in the piece. But that's part of the interest of this whole collection, is that some of the pieces will challenge you to kind of just rethink them a little bit.